Hi everyone, thought I'd do a video on what's going on in Syria at the moment. I did plan on doing this earlier in the week, but I've actually hurt my back, which is why I haven't dropped any videos over the last few days. Boo hoo, boo me. Thought to do a video just deconstructing what's going on over there at the moment in Syria, because there's lots of talks of possible chemical weapons attacks. The West are using this as a sort of defence to stop Syria and who are supported by Russia from going in and wiping out these terrorists which we have been arming and funding. It all started on September the 9th. This is the Wall Street Journal. US says Syria plans gas attack in rebel stronghold. President Bashar al-Assad of Syria has approved the use of chlorine gas in an offensive against the country's last major rebel stronghold, US officials said, raising the prospects for another retaliatory US military strike as thousands try to escape what could be a decisive battle in the 7-year-old war. Okay, I didn't read that article because the Wall Street Journal have got a paywall up, but fortunately The Hill did a write-up on it, and this is just a hilarious article. It really is. It's hilarious because you can see there it says Syria's Assad has approved the use of chlorine gas in Idlib. And they say this: Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has given approval for the use of chlorine gas in the country's last remaining rebel holdout in Idlib province, US officials told the Wall Street Journal on Sunday. Links through to the Wall Street Journal article. Nowhere here do we have any names of anybody or any proof of anything. Bear that in mind, because the next paragraph is just a joy. It really is. It says, if Assad deploys the chemical weapon against the approximately 70,000 remaining opposition fighters in Idlib, President Trump has privately threatened to deploy a massive attack against his regime. People familiar with the exchange told the Journal. Okay, so, first of all, it's not 70,000. It's more like 30,000, and some estimates come in as low as 10,000. Second of all, he has privately threatened to deploy a massive attack. People familiar with the exchange told the Journal. Nobody, no name. No name at all. And thirdly, why is it whenever they're talking about a democratically elected leader in the mainstream media, such as anywhere really, Hill, Guardian, BBC, doesn't matter, if they're talking about somebody the West doesn't like, it's a regime. If they talk about somebody they like, regardless of their human rights record, well, look at Saudi Arabia. It's the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's the Saudi prince, bin Salman. It's the regime of Assad. It's Assad's regime. It's the butcher of Assad. It's a democratically elected country. The dictator Assad, they say. Unbelievable. But when it's Saudi Arabia, hey, it's the kingdom, it's the prince, everything's great. It's just propaganda. It's the way it works. It goes on to say there in the third paragraph, the Washington Post reported Friday that the president had approved a new strategy in Syria which would station 2,000 US soldiers there indefinitely. I'm pretty sure that should be the headline. And I haven't checked, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Washington Post haven't reported on that at all. The president just, saying another 2,000 US soldiers are going to be there indefinitely. It then continues, this article does, to say the president also issued harsh warnings last Wednesday saying, if it's a slaughter, the world is going to get very, very angry, and the United States is going to get very angry too. And they're worried here about the loss of civilian life. They don't care about the loss of civilian life in Yemen. Just don't care about it. Children being blown up on a bus the other week. The Saudi Arabians, who are our proxy in this war, just said it was a legitimate target. They're bombing marketplaces, double tapping funerals and double tapping weddings, which is a war crime. Practicing siege warfare, which is a war crime. Over 1 million people caught cholera last year. 60% of those children. That was just in 2017. It's without how many have caught it this year. Over 10,000 people died, although it's difficult to get a real number because the UN's figure is actually coming down, which means somehow they're bringing people back to life. But still, the point, you see the point. They don't care about the slaughter and the loss of civilian life in Yemen, but all of a sudden when Syria when Syria are trying to get these jihadists out of their own country, all of a sudden worried about civilian life. I'm worried about civilian life too, but it just shows the hypocrisy of these Western powers. It then continues, this article does, I'm not going to read it all, but it then continues and says, however, it's not guaranteed US will respond in force, the journal reports. Quote, we haven't said that the US would use the military in response to an offensive, one senior administration official told the newspaper. So they've got chemical weapons, although they're going to use chemical weapons, no proof of it. President Trump has privately threatened to deploy a massive attack against the regime if it happens, and then they go on to debunk their own article by saying, we haven't said that the US would use military force. This whole article might as well just have been a headline, because there's no substance to the article whatsoever. And you will see this is a theme whenever they mention chemical weapons. For instance, here's the BBC. They have done their normal write-up on this whenever it comes to Syria. If you notice there, they always, they're still keeping it, the category as Syrian civil war, even though it's not a civil war. These are forces from outside the country. And this is just typical propaganda BS from the BBC, same as the Hill, same as the Wall Street Journal. First of all, you get in the middle there, it says, on Saturday, the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a monitoring body, said the opposition-affiliated Idlib media centre said government helicopters had dropped 19 barrel bombs on targets in Idlib and Russian warplanes had staged 68 strikes. And it then goes on to say 4 civilians, including 2 children, were killed in these strikes. Okay. Problem with that is not the accuracy of the information at all. When they say on Saturday the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, it sounds really important, that does, doesn't it? It sounds like some sort of massive charity over in Syria that's checking on the human rights record of all these. No, it's a guy in Coventry. One guy in Coventry. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is one guy in Coventry who is funded by the UK government to keep an eye on things in Syria. Now, for all intents and purposes, this guy is very busy. And he seems to be doing his best. But still, it's a guy in Coventry. It doesn't sound as good, that paragraph doesn't, if it says, on Saturday, a guy in Coventry said that some people died. But they call it the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, because it sounds important. Propaganda. And then this continues. Just look at what they've put in this article. On Thursday, the new US envoy for Syria, Jim Jeffrey, said the anticipated conflict would be a reckless escalation and that, quote, there is lots of evidence that chemical weapons are being prepared. He did not give details of the evidence he was referring to. So he's just said, oh, chemical weapons, just throwing it out there. No evidence whatsoever. And then they carry on there to say, what do we know of recent chemical weapons use? Okay, and this is where I have a problem with the whole thing, because it's not straightforward and it's not cast iron and there isn't any proof that actually it was Assad that used the chemical weapons in Khan Shaykhun. Just listen to what they say at the bottom of the BBC article. The Syrian government has denied ever using chemical weapons. Well, so have we, so have the Americans, so have Israel, and we all have, let's face it. So, however, experts from the UN and the Organisation for the Prohibition for Chemical Weapons have said government forces were behind an attack involving the nerve agent sarin on a rebel-held town in southern Idlib in April 2017. This is Khan Shaykhun that they're looking at. So I just want to follow this thread because they've said there, okay, OPCW have said government forces were behind an attack, which is correct. It is correct. Here's the Khan Shaykhun attack. Now, this is Wikipedia, but I just want to show you how the propaganda works. So this is why I'm going to Wikipedia. So it's here, the Khan Shaykhun attack took place on 4th of April 2017. You might remember this. Trump bombed an airfield in response with 59 missiles. You can see there it goes on to say the OPCW UN Joint Investigative Mechanism, the governments of the US, UK, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, France and Israel. Let's face it, those 6 countries would blame Assad for murdering Santa Claus if it meant we overthrew their country. So let's just keep that in mind. And it says, as well as Human Rights Watch, I'll get to them at the moment, have attributed the attack to the forces of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. So those are the people that have said, people with vested interests, basically. Get to Human Rights Watch in a bit. But first of all, the reason why I want to show you this is, you can see here it's got the links. So we can check. Well, here's one of them. Here's one of the articles, something called Syria Direct, which I've never heard of before. And I've seen this picture halfway down. It says here, a Syrian man collects samples at the site of a gas attack in Khan Shaykhun in his flip-flops. It's unreal. And this goes on to say here, and it's important that you listen to the wording on I know this is Wikipedia, but still. The town was reported to have been struck by an airstrike by government forces, followed by a massive civilian chemical poisoning. Now, that actually does fit with a lot of people's thoughts on that attack, in that they dropped the bombs and it actually hit a cache of chemical weapons that was being held up by the terrorists. But here's, stopping with Wikipedia, one of the other links that they've put for their proof, their evidence as to what happened, was from the White Helmets. Now, if you've followed my channel, you'll know I'm no fan of the White Helmets. You can see there it says Syria Civil Defence. Yeah, they've called them that for a reason. That's because there is a Syrian Civil Defence, which is a militia that's been going on in Syria since 1972. But they just call them the Syria Civil Defence, but they're actually not from Syria. They were trained by a guy called James Le Mesurier. Le Mesurier, is it James Le Mesurier? Le Mesurier is a former MI6 agent who trained these White Helmets in Turkey. They're not actually Syrian at all. This is an outside operation, and as I've shown on other videos, when places like Aleppo and Ghouta are liberated, we go in and the White Helmets base is next door to the jihadist headquarters. They're working hand in glove with the jihadists. These are the people that we're meant to be taking, the word of them and going to war based on stuff that they have said. And here's the thing, as Newsweek have said in this article, as I've pointed out before, Mattis has admitted there's no evidence that Assad used poison gas on his own people in 2017. This is the 2017 attack they're talking about. No evidence. Mattis has come out and said that. So when they're talking about previous chemical weapons attacks, always remember, they've never been proven to be Assad, and it would make no sense for him to do that because, it's the one thing that he knows will galvanise the rest of the country, or the rest of the world against him if he uses chemical weapons. And he's already won this war. He's winning this war. It's at the end now. Now, I mentioned the Human Rights Watch there. This is Kenneth Roth, who I think is Executive Director of Human Rights Watch, and my job is just too easy because when I put all this together, I actually found this, and he tweeted this out literally just a few hours before. He said some Syrians have begun to sneak over the border into Turkey, risking being shot by border guards rather than sit in Idlib, facing possible slaughter by Putin-Assad forces. And he's linked to a picture there with some people. And I mean, I don't know about you, but linking to a picture like that, it makes me, and the title, it makes you think that these are Syrians who are trying to sneak into Turkey. They're not, though, as Partisan Girl spotted. If you zoom in, these have got rifles. So that's the sort of thing that this Human Rights Watch do to manipulate consent. And she said they're carrying guns. Are you sure they haven't snuck into Syria from Turkey with newly loaded guns? Interesting how you gloss over the fact that Turkey is forcing Idlib civilians to become human shields for al-Qaeda by shooting them if they try to escape. That's really what's happening. Turkey borders Syria. If anybody tries to cross the border, they're getting shot by Syria. Not good. So this is what's happening over there at the moment. Now, this is from the BBC, they're still calling them Syrian rebels. Look, there's the purple patch that are being controlled. They say Syrian rebels, jihadist forces. They've now added jihadist forces on. They never used to say that. It's still incorrect though, because it's al-Qaeda. That's who is actually, that's who's controlling that area. It's al-Qaeda. And I'll go on to prove this in a minute. For instance, in travel warnings, US Department of State admits Idlib is controlled by al-Qaeda. This is weak. So the United States Department of State admits Idlib is controlled by Al Qaeda. There is no, there is no, oh, you're just saying that to be bellicose. No, Al Qaeda really are controlling them. And the United States and the United Kingdom are trying to stop Al Qaeda being killed. Same people who they say flew the planes into the Twin Towers. This is Wikipedia as well, just to show you that, this is an open secret. From early stages of the civil conflict in Syria, major Western countries such as the United States, France and the United Kingdom provide political, military and logistic support to the opposition as well as rebel groups in Syria. It's important to know that this isn't a civil war. This is a war that basically we have funded. We have funded and armed and trained these people to try and overthrow the Assad government. No thought as to what happens next, but we're not the only people who've trained these rebels. Israel have trained their own band of mercenaries to go in there. Turkey have got their own as well, protecting their border, so they say, and the Kurds have got their own, supported by the United States, I think, in the north of the country. So it's a mess there. We've all got our dogs in the fight. But at least with Israel, it says here Israel secretly armed Syrian rebels and then abandoned them. So they've bought off their jihadists, and then when they got into trouble, just washed their hands of them. So Israel probably did the right thing there, to be honest. If you're going to hire terrorists, that's the way to treat them. So this is the situation there at the moment. As you can see there, it says Turkish military observation post. I really need to read more into this because they really do look like forward observation points to me. Really do. But as you can see there, Turkey, they've got their own militia sort of in Syria as well, and then the light blue is the Syrian Kurdish forces. And the Syrian army want to go in there and get rid of Al Qaeda. And who wouldn't? If Al Qaeda were in Cornwall, I'm pretty sure we'd be going in there pronto. Now we know something is going to happen because this was from last Saturday. WikiLeaks says YouTube, which is controlled by Google Alphabet, censored Syrian state channels on Saturday, including Sama TV, Sana News Agency, Syrian Ministry of Defense and the Syrian Presidency, ahead of its battle to retake Idlib, which currently is in the hands of Saudi, US, UK-backed forces. So, the tech giants there silencing government outlets. And then there's one person who is really talking sense through all of this. In America, there's not many talking sense. Tulsi Gabbard is the only person who is. And this was a while ago now. I think this was the 7th of September. It was. She's calling for a safe corridor to evacuate people, civilians. I don't think that's going to happen now. I think we're past that. But this is something that she tweeted out on September the 11th, anniversary of 9/11. While President Trump and VP Pence give 9/11 speeches about how much they care about the victims of Al-Qaeda's attack on our country, they are simultaneously acting as protectors of Al-Qaeda in Syria, Idlib, threatening Russia and Syria that if they attack Al-Qaeda, we will punish them. That's the situation at the moment in Idlib. Let's just get back to the map. So this is the situation at the moment. There's going to be casualties, and I wouldn't be surprised if the rebels, in their desperation, launch a gas attack. I wouldn't be surprised if that's happened, just to try and blame Assad. And the problem is, if that happens this time, nobody's going to believe it. Nobody. Very few people are going to believe it, and we're going to have to scream and shout and make an absolute song and dance to stop any military happening. I'm fucking sick of these wars. I've had enough of them, and I'm pretty sure you have as well. My apologies for swearing, but I've had enough of them. We've got to stop interfering with other people's countries. I don't care how many resources they've got. I don't care if you've attached the value of your reserve, the world currency, to the value of this black stuff in the ground. Doesn't matter. I don't care. We've got to stop these wars, and we've got to stop this pathetic propaganda, this bullshitting, trying to manufacture consent to get into war, because that's all this is. It's just manufacturing consent for the public to let the governments do whatever it is that they want to do. Well, we're on to them. I'll give you the facts with regards to what's happening over there at the moment. We're basically protecting Al-Qaeda, and we're using possible civilian casualties as the excuse to. If it was in Yemen, they wouldn't be talking about that at all. So just bear that in mind when they talk about Syria. I'll keep everybody informed going forward on this and keeping a really close eye on it, because this is a situation that could spark at any moment and become a global confrontation. I'll keep you informed of it. If you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and click the bell below. Independent media platforms like mine are being censored by giant media such as Facebook and Google, so we rely on you, our audience, to share our work and spread the word. If you can, please support us on Patreon. You can do it on my channel for as little as $1 a month, and every bit helps. We cannot do this without your support. Thanks very much for your support. It's really appreciated. Until next time, peace and take care.